Hi, my name is Mariah, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about Down syndrome. What exactly is Down syndrome? What are the characteristics of Down syndrome? And then some evidence based best practices that you can implement in your classroom to help your students with Down syndrome succeed. So, here we just have the index. Again, we're going to be going over what is Down syndrome, characteristics, the idea of categorization, evidence-based best practices, and then me demonstrating to the evidence-based best practices. And then, of course, we have my reference page, which should be at the end of the presentation. So what exactly is Down syndrome? According to the CDC, Down syndrome is a condition in which a person has an extra chromosome. Babies are typically born with 46 chromosomes. However, babies with Down syndrome have an extra copy of a chromosome called chromosome 21. As you can see here is a diagram of a person who has a regular amount of chromosomes, 46. And then here we have a person who has a extra copy of chromosome 21, which means that they have Down syndrome. Down syndrome is categorized as an intellectual disability under IDEA, and about 6,000 babies born in the United States have Down syndrome. So this means that Down syndrome occurs in about 1 in every 700 babies. So here we just have some common physical characteristics of a person with Down syndrome. In this picture here, you can see that they have a flattened profile and nose. They will have poor muscle tone and small head, ears, and mouth. They will have upward slanting eyes, as you can see in these pictures here. And then wide, short hands, a protruding tongue, and then they'll often be shorter in height, even in their adult years compared to people who are the same age as them. And they will have a skin fold that comes out from the upper eyelid and covers the inner corner of their eyes, as the picture shows here. Um, Children with Down syndrome typically have delays in motor skills and speech. So, for example, a typically developing child usually begins to crawl around 8.5 months, whereas a child with Down syndrome might not start until around 18 months. They also may be slower in learning how to turn over, sit up, and stand due to their poor muscle tone. And so here we just have some common intellectual characteristics that a person with Down syndrome may display. We have short attention span, poor judgment, poor short-term memory, impulsive behavior, slow learning, slow verbal learning, and then poor expressive communication. And then we have some common health characteristics. While many know about the physical and intellectual symptoms of Down syndrome, there are also health risks associated with this disability, such as congenital heart disease, vision and hearing loss, thyroid problems, seizures, and sleep apnea. People with Down syndrome are more likely to develop sleep apnea due to their low muscle tone and the fact that their upper airways are usually smaller. They are also more susceptible to hearing loss due to the fact that they have narrow ear canals and abnormalities in their cochlea. Although children with Down syndrome may have delays in their development, they are still capable of reaching those important milestones. Many students with intellectual disabilities are able to read and write up to or even beyond the sixth grade. And by incorporating these evidence-based practices into their education, it will allow the student a better opportunity to thrive in their school career. So first we have including visual supports. One of the primary accommodations that you can make for any classroom is including visual supports. And then some example of visual supports can include class schedules, models, timers, pictures, and drawings. As previously noted, students with Down syndrome tend to have a short attention span and may have hearing loss. So providing visual support such as timers and class schedules allow the student to know what to expect in their daily routine and how long they're expected to do that task for. Next, we have assistive technology. which is basically any device that helps people with disabilities work around their challenges. One example of assistive technology is a software that reads text aloud to the child because, as we know, students with Down syndrome tend to struggle with reading and comprehension. And assistive technology also doesn't have to be expensive or fancy. It could be something as small as adding adaptive tools such as a pencil gripper to the student's pencil if they're struggling with writing because of their low muscle tone and their short limbs. And then next we have hands-on activities. Again, this is one of those strategies where it's beneficial for like the whole class or like any classroom environment, but especially for students with Down syndrome. Because they can typically have hearing and visual impairments, it's best to appeal to the other senses, such as touch and even taste. Having activities where the student is able to feel and move around allows them to work on their gross and fine motor skills and possibly their communication skills if it is done in a whole group activity. This just allows them to become like more involved and engaged in learning. So, for example, you can use like manipulatives such as counting blocks and dice during your math lesson. Next, we have incorporating task analysis. Task analysis is just breaking down complex activities into a series of small steps so that the student is able to see and mimic those steps easily. This accommodation is great for students with Down syndrome because, as I mentioned, they typically have a short attention span and short memory. So, breaking the activities into chunks will reduce frustration. And then, along the same line, you can shorten instruction. So, you can modify your lesson so that you are only introducing a few ideas at a time, so that the student is fully able to digest the information you give them before moving on to something new. And you can also incorporate functional skills into your lesson. Including functional skills helps them in the real world. There are plenty of ways to incorporate functional skills into your lessons. For instance, in math, you can use real coins when talking about counting money. This way, you're using hands-on activities while still helping them understand the look and value of real money. You can also include mini lessons on self-care, time management, and even basic household tasks. These don't have to be long or time consuming, but having these discussions and these activities can help with their life skills and independence later on in life. And then we have using flashcards. Again, students with Down syndrome have poor short term memory. Students with Down syndrome benefit from using repetition because it helps them retain information. It helps to know what key skills you want to present to the student and how you want to present them on the flashcards. It can include words, phrases, and icons. And you can also decide on when and how often you want the students to review them, which is great for time management for both you and the student. And then you can also incorporate music and singing. Music and singing has rhyming and repetition in it and can be used as a language model for students with Down syndrome. It can increase phonological awareness as well because you are singing every syllable with the music notes. So using it in lesson is also a great way to introduce new vocabulary words. And then we have desk and foot supports. This is one of the more subtle accommodations you can make. You can adjust like the height of the desk, so the child is more comfortable workspace because their low muscle tone causes them to need proper support. Like it's imperative that they have the proper support when they are working. Also, checking to ensure that their feet aren't dangling from the chair, but are instead resting flat on the ground, which will lessen fatigue. And it's also important to note that it's discouraged that children with Down syndrome sit crisscross or W because it adds stress to the joints and to their hands and knees. You can also allow more time for the student to complete the work because they will often need more time to work and process the material that they learn from the lesson. And then finally, we have encouraging positive peer interactions. Just making sure that you are promoting inclusive peer interactions that will support the social development of the student. This can include assigning a buddy to a student, including them in group assignments, and just talking to the class about what a disability is and the importance of being kind to each other. So here I've demonstrated two of the evidence-based best practices that I talked about in the previous slide, and hopefully you found them helpful when you watch them. And then here is my reference page if you want to find more information about anything that's in my slides. And I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for listening.